The Venezuela Nuestra campaign command denounced the plans of the extreme right to declare electoral fraud. In the United States, partisan support grows for Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic Party experienced its biggest influx in small dollar donations since 2020. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces ordered an evacuation of thousands in Khan Yunis al-Mawasi town. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Venezuela Nuestra campaign command denounced the plans of the extreme right to declare electoral fraud. The head of the campaign command, Jorge Rodriguez, continues denouncing a blackout that has been unleashed on the activities of the candidate of the Great Patriotic Poll, Nicolás Maduro. The top leader indicated that the extreme right wing is trying to silence the reality of this process and to implement a sort of electoral April 11th with the objective of falsifying a reality that serves its destabilizing purposes. Jorge Rodriguez stated that they have an operations center in Miami, and from there they will shunt fraud in a presumed official transmission. Rodriguez ratified which are the true polls in this electoral contest.
We denounce them here. We are publicly denouncing it. They have a base in the city of Miami. That base is being set up by the sister-in-law of Mrs. Magali Mehta, and that place is from where they are going to declare fraud in the afternoon of next Sunday, July 28th. And from there, of course, they are going to connect with what they call the official transmission. It is not the National Electoral Council. It is not even located in any city of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
On Sunday, the president of the National Electoral Council of Venezuela, Elvis Amoroso, confirmed that 100% of the electoral machines have already been distributed across the country. Amoroso said so during the pre-dispatch audit in the venues of the National Electoral Council, located in the state of Miranda in the center north of Venezuela. On the preliminary audit, in which witnesses of political organizations attended, authorities verified the correct functioning of the communicational devices. Therefore, the president of the highest electoral body ratified that the stages of the ballot agenda for July 28th elections are being rigorously complied with. Venezuelan Ministry of Defense Vladimir Padrino Lopez received Monday the delegation from the U.S. Carter Center, which will participate as observers in the upcoming presidential elections on July 28th. Our special envoy, Juno Suner, with the details.
Hello from the Hall of Honor Simon Bolivar here in the Ministry of Defense in Caracas, Venezuela, where the Minister of Defense of Venezuela, Padrino Lopez, received an 8-person delegation of the Carter Center from the United States, a center founded by former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, which has a long history here in Venezuela. It has already observed and watched over 7 different elections and referendums since 1998 and has confirmed the security of the electronic voting system in 2006 and an increase of citizens' confidence in the electoral system in 2012. So the delegation was welcomed by the minister with the warmest words. He expressed his content of them being here and said, actually, the Carter Center has made history already here in Venezuela. He described the atmosphere, the election atmosphere, as enthusiastic and full of joy, and explained to the delegation the so-called Plan of the Republic, whereby the armed forces secure the electors and election centers and the voting machines ahead, during the election day, and afterwards as well. Within that Plan of Republic, thousands of soldiers will be deployed to the voting centers, and some of them already are, but the official deployment will start on July 24 with an official ceremony to make sure that every citizen has security to go to the election center and vote, and do this in a very easy, relaxed, and secure atmosphere.
In Venezuela, the inhabitants of the city of Valera in the state of Trujillo welcomed the candidate of the Great Patriotic Poll, Nicolás Maduro, with acts of support. During a meeting with the people of Valera, the presidential candidate reiterated that he will achieve a resounding victory in the presidential elections to be held next Sunday, July 28th. Furthermore, he thanked the population for their unconditional support and courage and reiterated his commitment to preserve peace in the face of the pretensions of violence of the Venezuelan extreme right.
I came to see your face. Lower the flags, because I came to see the people. To thank them for so much bravery, for so much patriotism, for so much strength. Trujillo, I love you. I am Nicolas Maduro Moros, President of the People. And I say from Valera that we are going to win the presidential elections next Sunday, July 28th.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the United States, the Democratic Party experienced its biggest influx in small dollar donations since 2020 as partisan support for Kamala Harris grows. On Sunday, following the news of President Joe Biden's withdrawal from the presidential race and his backing of Vice President Kamala Harris, instead, the leading Democratic online donation processor, AxBlue, reported that donors gave $46.7 million in small dollar donations through the platform. The funds were confirmed on Monday by Harris' campaign spokesperson Brian Fallon, who said she raised $49.6 million in grassroots donations following Biden's endorsement. The funds will help rebuild the Democratic campaign as big donors had paused their fundraising efforts in the weeks following Biden's alarming debate performance. From the White House in Washington, D.C., and during her first public address since Joe Biden's withdrawal from the presidential race, Vice President Kamala Harris highlighted the head of state's legacy.
Joe Biden's legacy of accomplishment over the past 3 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, he has already, yes, you may clap. In one term, he has already surpassed the legacy of most presidents who have served 2 terms.
On Sunday, in an exclusive interview for our multi-platform teleSUR, the leader of the social movement Bridges of Love, Carlos Lasso, gave details about Joe Biden's resignation from his presidential candidacy.
Many people in the political environment of the United States expected that maybe Biden would withdraw, because after the failed performance in the debate with Trump, it was bad news and bad news. The fact that today he announced his withdrawal from the campaign to support Kamala Harris creates a new dynamic in the United States, and towards the elections, there was a lot of pessimism among the Democrats because there was little chance that Biden would win the elections. Especially in the most important states, these states that are decisive for the presidency. And the fact that he is now withdrawing, and the possible presidential candidate Kamala Harris, gives a lot of hope to the Democrats and too many forces that are opposed to President Trump here in the United States.
In the meantime, Carlos Lasso pointed out that the polls were not favorable for President Biden.
Biden received overwhelming support from African American women and African Americans overall, at this moment, according to the polls. There is some discouragement among these people, and it is not that maybe they are not going to vote or were going to vote against Biden, but that they were not encouraged to vote for Biden. They thought it was not worth it to go out and vote for Biden. However, when the same polls were made to these people about Kamala Harris, there was more enthusiasm, there was more intention to vote. So I think that in this sense, we can gather a part of this alliance, that is the Democrats. This front, that is created by the Democrats of African Americans, Hispanics, migrants from different sectors, and it can have an impact on minorities, and also on the population in general for this ground, for this idea of an African American woman to be the first president of the United States.
On the other hand, the international analyst Ana Cesena assured that this week is key to measure the consensus of the Democratic Party between Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama.
I imagine that during the week, it will be clearer how far the consensus within the Democratic Party can go. There are other candidates who are strong candidates, and there is one who is not a candidate yet, but it is a figure that has been informally being talked about within the United States, that is Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama could be a candidate that if she meets the consensus within the party, she could have the conditions to dispute with the Trump-Vance formula. Michelle Obama has a lot of sway in the population, a lot of recognition. What is not sure yet is that she can really count on all the votes within the members of the Democratic Party. There are power issues at play and not so much the possibility of having the best candidate to defeat the Republicans nor what the citizens think. That is only half taken into account. But in reality, the definition will be marked by the internal power games among the Democrats, which are not easy.
On Monday in Russia, residents of Moscow reacted to the news that President Biden had withdrawn from his campaign for a second term. In this regard, locals stressed their confidence in President Putin, whoever the new president is, and called for path to peace to be found.
I think whoever the president there is, it won't affect us at all, because we are too strong a nation, our president is too strong. Whoever they choose, I don't know all the people who run for president there, it will not affect us in any negative way. I have too much confidence in my country, in the president of my country. Of course, I would like Russia, the United States and Europe to find common ground finally. We are all human beings and we all want the same things: peace, tranquility, prosperity. What more?
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for an English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, the Israeli occupation army ordered a new evacuation of thousands of Gazans from their lands. In this way, soldiers, on behalf of the genocidal regime of Tel Aviv, ordered the inhabitants of Khan Yunis to temporarily evacuate the humanitarian area of Mawasi. For its part, the Zionist army also warned that the new exodus should be carried out immediately, alleging that numerous terrorist acts perpetrated by the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas have taken place in these areas. On the other hand, it was also known that in the last hours, Israel bombed more than 35 targets in the region, leaving many dead and wounded. On Monday, the United Nations condemned Israel's army latest attack on a humanitarian aid convoy bound for the Gaza Strip. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, known as UNRWA, denounced that Israeli forces fired at least 5 times at United Nations vehicles, leaving no casualties as they were able to find shelter during the attack. It should be noted that UNRWA has condemned the occupation army for the killing of more than 100 United Nations workers, as it also demands accountability for those responsible for the death. The number of Palestinians killed by Israel in the Gaza Strip is on the verge of reaching 40,000 victims since the beginning of the genocidal operation. In this regard, health authorities in Gaza confirmed that the Israeli occupation's attacks against the Palestinian civilians have claimed more than 39,000 victims and left more than 89,000 wounded, most of them women and children. Meanwhile, they also announced that the Israeli attacks on Gaza have killed 23 Palestinians and wounded 91 in the last 24 hours. On the other hand, the civil defense announced that a large number of the dead are still lying in the streets and under the rubble. On Sunday, the Islamic Resistance of Iraq launched a new operation against Israeli targets in the occupied territories. In this regard, Iraqi Islamists reported in a statement that the operation was carried out in support of the Palestinian people and in response to the genocide carried out by the Israeli occupation army against civilians in the Gaza Strip. Precisely after the beginning of the genocide of the Zionist regime in Gaza in October, the Iraqi Islamic Resistance Movement has attacked Israeli military targets, assuring that these operations will continue with increasing intensity. The supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution of Iran, Ali Khamenei, expressed his support to President-elect Masoud Pezeshkian. The leader of the Islamic Revolution called on the parliament to give its constructive cooperation to the new government of President-elect Masoud Pezeshkian. Khamenei further stressed that the role and determination of the parliament in circumventing the sanctions imposed by the West on Iran. Likewise, Khamenei pointed out that the situation in Palestine remains the first issue of the Islamic world and maintained his steadfast rejection of the indiscriminate bombing of the Gaza Strip by Israeli forces. In Nigeria, a new measure by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu authorized a wage increase of twice the current salary for civil servants. Regardless, the Nigerian National Labour Congress declared that the measure was insufficient and below the demand for a six-fold increase in wages, as the nation faces a severe cost of living crisis. Precisely, the current Nigerian government has been criticized for the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of exchange rates, which has caused inflation estimated at 35.1%. Meanwhile, civil servants themselves insist that the wage increase to 70,000 naira, equivalent to $43, is not enough.
But I believe it's not enough. It's not enough, not only to civil servants, but also to Nigerian populace as a whole. And I mean, the 70,000 minimum wage, as it sounds, it's nothing compared to what they are getting.
The minimum wage increment, considering the realities on ground, is not what should carry a civil servant or a public servant home, as the case may be.
But
On Monday, the Olympic flame continued its journey through the Paris region in the Essonne department just 3 days before the opening ceremony. In this sense, the 64th stage of the torch relay started in the town of Étampes, famous as a royal town and a land of art and history. A total of 150 torchbearers will carry the flame over 26 kilometers and 11 municipalities, with the lighting of the cauldron at the Robert Bombing Stadium. On Tuesday, the journey will continue on Yves lines before arriving in Paris on Friday for the opening of the Olympic Games, with the Seine River at its epicenter. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron affirmed that his nation is ready to host the Olympic Games. In the meantime, just 3 days before the opening ceremony, Macron supervised with his Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin the most confidential security elements, as he also committed to return to Saint-Denis, site of the Olympic Village. For his part, he emphasized that it has been years of work to ensure the success of the Five Rings event, which will be organized by Paris for the third time in its history. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.